once you understand that all the control to your destiny, to your desired future, lies within your mindset, then there's no force that can stop you from achieving that. And yes, luck plays a role. Yes, being at the right moment at the right time and all of that is important. But until unless you do the work, nothing's going to happen. So I think that's where the journey started to move from that mocktail era into the cocktail era.
Welcome back to Mocktails to Cocktails, the podcast where we decode what it really takes to level up in your career, mindset, and energy, without the fluff, burnout, or boring lectures. I'm your host, Jia Rastogi, and I've got a question for you. Have you ever felt like you're meant for more, but you're not really sure how to pivot, where to start, or what to bet on next? Yeah, same. And that's why today's guest is such a shift. Utkarsh Narang has done everything they said not to do. He left a stable career as a physiotherapist, taught himself how to create 400 plus hours of content for a top Ivy League professor, and led a sales team at a scaling startup. And now he coaches high performers around the world on how to upgrade not just their career, but the way they think, move, and show up. So if you've been stuck in that what now or what if I mess up phase, this conversation will really give you courage, clarity, and some next steps. So whether you're sipping a mocktail and dreaming big or already in your cocktail era making bold moves, this is where things get interesting. Let's get started. Hey Utkarsh, how are you?
I'm very well, Jia. What an intro, right? I mean, because I'm thinking through that you put such a lot of pressure on this podcast and this guest to deliver value. But I think what you spoke about is super important, where we can build a life that is of our dreams and do things that are not told to us, because that's what human life is about. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Definitely. So in spirit of the podcast name, Mocktails to Cocktails, Utkarsh, if success were a drink, what would be its two main ingredients for your success?
By the end of this conversation, we'll tell our listeners as to 5 ingredients of a cocktail drink that I love. But for now, I thought about this, Jia, because I think for you to be successful in life, the mindset that you operate with is super important. So, mindset would be the first ingredient. And then the second ingredient is the mentors that you look up to and that you get. And those mentors could be your parents, could be your siblings, spouse, friends, whoever you can look up to and learn from, they become your mentors. So, mentors and mindset are the two big ingredients, according to me, for success.
Definitely. I totally agree with those two because even I see with myself, it's definitely my mentors are the ones that keep pushing me forward. And it's mindset that helps me channel me from going forward. So great to hear your experience as well. So let's rewind a little. Today, you coach executives, run global learning programs, and speak on performance. But let's go back to the start. So, what did life look like when you were still in your mocktail era? So, before the coaching and before the career glow up?
So I'll take you back 40 years because that's where the story begins, right? Next week, as of we are recording this, I turn 40 years old on this planet. And the first 20 years are like your spring season, where you're supported by your parents, where you can take whatever risks you want. And so, as a little kid growing up in Delhi, India, parents were both doctors. And so they never put a lot of pressure on me that, Utkarsh, you got to become a doctor too. But it almost like innately became something that I thought was just a conscious choice, that was a natural progression of my life, that I have to become a doctor too. And that's what's been bestowed upon me, or that's what I'll inherit from my parents. And so that's what I did. I did my master's in orthopedic physiotherapy. This was back home in India. And I started my own clinic. Now, one clinic, and then the second clinic, and then the third clinic. And it seemed that opening those 3 clinics, a fitness center, was a true definition of success. In external and outward ways, I was successful because I was earning really well. It was a profession that was well respected. And so that was the era where, yeah, I mean, I felt really satisfied with what I was doing. But then there was this inner challenge, Gia, that I was going through, that I always wanted to see that how can I do more? How can I push myself to do beyond what is just asked of me? And then that's what kind of started to prompt me to look for other ideas. But life as a physiotherapist was pretty good in India. I was respected and I had mentors, as I was telling you earlier, who were helping me grow to become one of the best therapists in the city at that time. And hopefully, then if I would have continued on that path, then in the country too.
Awesome. You've talked about your journey that you started as a physiotherapist, which is already very impressive. You had your 3 clinics and success was almost in your parents' eyes, you said that's what was successful. But then you switch paths, and that must have been a very hard choice for you to make. It's awesome to hear your story, how you've really been able to shift from those being so successful to exploring your other parts. And I really like how you were networking, you were seeing what other people were doing and seeing how you could take parts of their successful journeys and implementing that into your own. And another thing that I just wanted to mention, I had a few family members over on the weekend and for my sister's 13th birthday. And so we were all on the dinner table and we were actually talking about, because obviously I'm going into uni next year. So we were talking about even if uni is the right choice for me, I've collated so many skills out of school. And how could I use that to level up my career or whatever I decide to do in the future? And my elder cousin, he's married and he has already went through his uni doing a successful career. But what he really was emphasizing to me and my other cousin who just started uni, he was saying that it's very important to actually think about the overall satisfaction, not just about the success that you're getting in the short term or whatever you're doing to be successful. It's how do you actually define that success to yourself? So about that satisfaction, and if uni is the right choice, is that adding to my overall satisfaction or is it just hindering me from going down that path? So I feel like a lot of our listeners are at that crossroads as well, where they're good at something, but they're not really fulfilled by it. And it's scary to step away from that thing that you've trained for. You said that you had 6 years of education and making that shift was obviously a hard one. So what did it feel like to let go of that identity? Did you feel with doubt or guilt or even imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I think this word that you used here, identity, that's a massive word. But what has happened is that through the conditioning that we've been given over the last 100 years, what we've done is that we have conditioned ourselves to think of our identity mostly in terms of the work that we do. If someone asks me, Utkarsh, can you introduce yourself? Then my prompt response will be to get into telling people about the work that I do, what profession do I have, what company do I work for, what's my title, have I achieved the CEO state or not. So this is how we think about identity. And that is also influencing how we think about success. Because as you were saying, success has a multifaceted definition rather than it just being just one aspect of your life. I can have $1 million, but if I'm not satisfied with who I am, satisfied with the kind of life that I've built, then those $1 million are not worth it. I can have all the successes in the world, but if I don't have time for my hobbies and passions, then that success also becomes somewhat of a hollow success. So I think that's something that we need to make sure that we understand. Now, during that time, when I was trying to see what else was possible for my life, it was definitely a time of frustration because it seemed like there's nothing else I can do. And I'm now stuck here doing what I've spent maybe 10 years doing. And so maybe that's the only path that I have for myself. And sometimes you also feel that, oh, that success or that profession or that path is not for me. How will I succeed there? But the challenge that I throw now to my coaches and to us in this conversation is that how do you know that something is not meant for you until unless you try it? So to me, that trying, that fast failing, that at least going out and doing a small experiment is super critical. So that's part one. Learn to do small experiments. And I'll tell you how I managed that. And then the second part is we all have skills that we can carry forward into something else. As a physiotherapist, I was marketing my own clinic. I was doing a lot of sales for myself. I was building a network and community of doctors who would refer patients back to me. I was making sure that I collect testimonials from a patient who would have done really well for their health through my advice and my guidance. And so I was doing all of those skills that are also required in a corporate environment. And so I did not know that at that point in the moment. But in that moment, because I was confident that I have to change my life from being who I was to who I want to be, I was able to show up in a way where inside I might have doubted myself. I would have doubted my capabilities. I said, let's do a small experiment. It was January of 2013. I'll join your company. This is me talking to the founder. And let me do that for about 3 months. And if I'm able to do anything that's valuable, create impact, or deliver value to the work that you do, then maybe I'll stay here forever. And if not, then I'll quit. And so that turned out to be like they put their bet on me, and then I performed. And then, yeah, the rest is an ongoing journey that you and I will speak about.
Yeah, awesome. And so I'd love to know, like, how did you actually convince yourself that you were ready for that journey? Like, obviously, it's a very big leap. So how did you know that you were ready for that opportunity?
I would lie to you if I said I knew I was ready for that opportunity because I was not. I was just someone who knew that the path that I was on would take me to a default future. And that default future is something that I was not happy and comfortable with. And so for me to change it from the default future to the desired future or to get it even close to the desired future, I had to do something else. And so I entered that conversation doubting myself and also doubting what the future might hold. I can try to predict that what you and I will speak about in maybe 13 minutes, but I cannot really give you the exact thought, and neither can you. So we cannot even predict the conversation that you and I, two people who know each other, are going to have in 30 minutes from now. That who are we to predict the future? And I think that's
Definitely.
where we make that mistake, where we get so attached to the future that if this were to not happen, then I'll be a failure. If this were to not happen, I think that's what I was able to do that really well in that moment, where I was like, I'm going to walk in non attached, try to do my best, and see where this takes me. And that's what happened.
That's awesome. And even you mentioned taking those like small experiments to see if that's even right for you. And in my school, and probably in other schools as well, they encourage you to explore your opportunities as well. So in year 10, I did a work experience for 2 weeks and it was a 9 to 5. And I was able to put myself into that scenario of working from 9 to 5 and seeing if that's actually something that I would want to do, the skills that I was doing. And obviously, that's irrelevant to this conversation, but I just wanted to share like how taking those small experiences, even if it's just 2 weeks or 1 week or a few days, to see putting yourself into that scenario and seeing if it's even right for you. Yeah. So obviously those pivots that you took in the past, they were obviously a bit messy in the moment, obviously with your clinics still happening at the same time. But what was the most challenging part about being in that figuring out phase? Did you ever make any decisions that felt risky at the time but ultimately paid off in the future?
I made blunders in that moment. And I'll tell you something. It was February. My first role that I took up in that company was that I'll lead your marketing initiatives. And we had a call with a marketing agency in New York. And this was an experiment that I ran for 3 months. Now, I was exhausted by 9 o'clock and I fell to sleep. And I had no idea that I was missing a meeting. I wake up next day and I see this email from the founder. Utkarsh, you had to be in this meeting at so and so time. Where were you? I had to lead and run the meeting alone, and you had all the numbers and everything. And I was like, what the hell? And that was the self doubt, the imposter syndrome, the identity that I carried from my previous life. All of that was really hard. And so, whenever you're trying to change something about yourself, it's going to be hard. And I'll tell you one thing, it's a very silly example. If, say, you're a young child, or if you're a parent who's listening to this, if you have a child who's like maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, if it's peak winters, like it is right now in Melbourne, it is really hard to get them to change their clothes. It is really hard for them to go and take a bath. And even something as small as that is hard. Change is always going to be hard. But if you don't change, if you stay stagnated, then that journey is going to be hard too. I think
Definitely.
ultimately in life, we have to learn to choose what our heart is. And in that moment, I was able to choose my heart that I'm going to try to learn every day, try to see what experiments can I do, try to see how can I be my best. And that was like the first and almost I would say the last big error that I did where I kind of missed the meeting. And yes, other things happened over the next few years. But then I realized that, Utkarsh, if you want to move from your identity as a physiotherapist to this new identity, then you have to change a lot of things about yourself. And that change will happen only through small habits, only through a commitment that this is what you want for yourself. And until at least you show up every day, it's not going to work out because this identity of the physiotherapist is still with me. And so that's the challenging bit.
Definitely. And it's just such a powerful reminder of that globe isn't just an overnight thing that happens. It's like a series of messy experiments, inner battles, missing meetings, but small but bold decisions. And for anyone who's listening who's in that I don't know phase or not too sure what to do next, you're not behind and you're building your base and gathering your tools. And it's just like Utkarsh said, it's okay to change, to unlearn and to start from zero, but as long as you're with that mindset and the mentors around you to keep going. So now that we've unpacked your mocktail era where you were figuring it out, let's fast forward a little. I wanted to know, like, what's changed? What were those first big wins that started to signal that you were on the right track and the identity that you were making was something that you were more proud of
Yeah.
than before?
Yeah. I think once I started to make that shift for myself from being a physiotherapist to getting into this new workspace and workplace, I think that gave me a little bit of confidence that I can now figure this out. I think the big boost that came on my journey in that role was when I saw that company was filming video lectures, and I'd never been interested in photography and videography in any way. But I realized that skill for that place, if I can learn that, it'll make me almost like indispensable. And I thought that to learn a skill, all you got to do is to invest yourself in it. And so that's what I did. I watched YouTube videos. I looked at content from LinkedIn Learning or whatever, wherever I can get my hands on how to become a videographer and editor, because I knew that this was a skill that was very well valued at this organization. I started to transform myself into that. And once I was able to completely shift that identity, and I think that then there was no looking back. Then I realized that if we put in the right intention, if we put in the right work, and if you're ready to learn and get feedback, then we are just unstoppable. And I think that it just got wired in my brain. That's who we are. Ultimately, whatever you and I try and achieve, we will be able to achieve it if we operate with the right mindset. But if I decide right now that, oh, I don't want to be my best in this conversation with Jia, I don't want to do my best on this podcast, then that's a decision I'm taking. And I can then fall back, relax, and not do well also. So, what I'm trying to say is that once you understand that all the control to your destiny, to your desired future, lies within your mindset, then there's no force that can stop you from achieving that. And yes, luck plays a role. Yes, being at the right moment at the right time and all of that is important. But until you do the work, nothing's going to happen. So I think that's where the journey started to move from that mocktail era into the cocktail era.
Definitely. And I just love how you're saying that it's about your mindset, having that thinking of, yes, I can learn. Like video content creation wasn't something that was that known by you, but you wanted to put in the effort. You wanted to be the best. And you put in the time and effort to learn how to film videos and the other tasks that you took in that journey. So I'd love to know what was your first big win and how did you celebrate it?
Yeah. I think I'll fast forward the journey from being in that institute to when I decided during that time of the COVID, where I decided to take another leap, which was to become a coach, a facilitator, and start this company called Ignite Neurons. I think that again was a very big leap because where it came from was, yeah, that I was doing all this beautiful work for an organization, which I loved, by the way. But during COVID, that gave me like some downtime to think about what I wanted my life to stand for, what are certain things that are really important for me. And that's when I realized that helping people live with clarity, live with courage, and have some conscious impact on the planet is something that I'm really deeply driven by. And for me to fully control that, I need to become the coach, the content creator, the curator of that journey. And that's when I quit that job and started Ignite Neurons as a founder. Now, when I went back to my family and my wife, my dad, mom, all of them were there. And when I told them that now I'm going to quit a job and get onto being an entrepreneur again, because that's what I had done a few years ago, shocked to say the least. That's what their reaction was because they were thinking that here the world is going into lockdown mode and it's a time where people are losing their jobs and unable to make a living or are struggling for various reasons. And here you are, Utkarsh, trying to let go of a job and get into entrepreneurship. What's wrong with you? But again, at that moment in 2020, there was again dissonance between who I was being and who I wanted to be. And I think these are these evolution cycles that all of us go through. Some of us listen to that inner voice, and some of us, because of the societal pressures, because of mortgages, because of certain outer commitments that we've made to life, we shh that inner voice. And I think it's not fair to the inner voice to be shh, and instead we should allow it to be fully expressed. And I think when I took that leap, the first few months were not very constructive. Like, you don't immediately expect to start a business on January 1, 2021 and start getting like a list of clients who want to work with you. And so the first few weeks and months were really hard. But I think what happened during that time, Gia, is that I made a commitment that I'm going to show up in a disciplined way to my work desk, to my LinkedIn content, to my clients, or to whoever was a prospect for me. And so I made sure that I showed up with discipline. And then the first big break that I got, and I still clearly remember, I was driving somewhere and I had stopped the car on the side for something. I don't even remember that part, but someone called me and said, Utkarsh, and they were from a big unicorn company based in India. And they said, Utkarsh, we've seen your content. We see you share things that are valuable for our people. Would you come and do a workshop for our people? And to me, it was like 4 months into it, I've not reached out to this person. How is this person reaching out to me? And I asked them, like, we had a great conversation. We set up the time to meet and everything. And then I asked them, like, what made you reach out to me? Because I never see you engage with my content. And I think that's where people get this wrong. People feel that until unless your LinkedIn content or your content you put out on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, until unless a million people are watching it, nothing will happen. I think that's not true. Even if 100 right kind of people see you and they reach out to you and that can build business for you, personal branding becomes super important. So that moment was amazing for me, and I still have that feeling embedded in me. And the celebration was, I was in a car, I was driving, so just stayed at the roadside for about 2-3 minutes, took a few deep breaths and said thank you to the universe, maybe, for the effort that I put in.
Definitely. And those kind of moments have happened to me as well. Early in this year, I was invited as a keynote speaker for a presentation in Nigeria. And obviously, I was so confused, like, how did this even happen?
Yeah.
Like, she contacted me through LinkedIn because one of my posts went viral on there. But I think definitely it's about just that one right person who sees your content or even just the actions that you're taking. Like, just one mentor, someone who says, wow, this is very inspiring. I'd love to help you in ABC ways. It can level you up so much. And it's just about being authentic and putting yourself out there. And yeah, definitely. It's very powerful, the story that you shared. And so, was there a specific mindset shift that you had that really changed the game for you? What's something that you previously thought, but then you had to let go of that belief just because you had to this certain different way?
Yeah. I think a few things. One was just around this idea that you need to have a massive following to achieve results from any platform. I think that myth was broken in that moment, and it was very helpful to go through that change. The second was that if you do the right kind of work with the right kind of intention and show up in the right places, beautiful things will happen to you. So I think it's really important for you to put in the work and put in the action, and then the universe or whatever higher force you want to speak about, that will take care of the next steps. And then third was, so I got this big break, right? And so I thought, now we're all set. Ignite Neurons is on a journey to create beautiful things in the world, and so on and so forth. The first 4 months were amazing post this April workshop that we did. But then come September, I think COVID was intensifying in the world and business started to go down. And in that moment, it came to a position where I had to start using my savings for life and all the needs that life had. And there was like a rock bottom moment, Gia. October of 2021, I felt, Utkarsh, you've screwed yourself up, man. You did the wrong thing. You've created this massive situation for yourself where it's going to be impossible to come out of this. And even though we had a few early successes, but in that moment, it felt that now this whole deck of cards that the tower that we were building was made by a deck of cards. And so it's going to fall apart. And so there was, again, that self doubt creeped in, that challenge creeped in, that did I do the right thing? And in that moment, I think we all will face that. I think the only thing that I clearly remember doing in that moment was that I still believed in myself, that I still believed in my dream. And I remember this was October of 2021. I went ahead to the bank. I had a good credit history. I took a loan of a large enough amount to sustain me for a year. And I said that it might feel like now this is me putting even more pressure on myself and making me suffer a little bit more. But that belief that I will figure it out in the next 2, 3, 4, 6 months, I think that spoke volumes to myself, where I was then confident in approaching the next conversation, in reaching out to the next client. And then we ended up paying back that loan. We ended up succeeding. And that moment when I believed in myself and the dream, I think that just proves to me that we'll always be tested, whether we are in a business, whether we are entrepreneurs, whether we are content creators, whether we are in a 9 to 5 job. And I'm not against anything, but in any place in life, you will be tested. And if you don't believe in yourself, then it's going to be a rough journey forward.
Definitely. And I've often heard of this principle of even if you're starting at your journey here and your success is up here, it's never a straight line to get to success. It's always a wibbly wobbly, ups and downs. Everything goes sideways, upwards. So it's just a crazy journey for anyone. I don't think I've heard of any success story that's just yay, yay, yes.
Yeah. It doesn't happen. I think that's what's beautiful, right? And I love this story, and it's been made into different parables in different religions and languages. But in my kind of Indian way, what it was, there was this king called Akbar, and I think he had a minister, Birbal, who was really smart. And so there were these crossroads in their kingdom where two roads, two walls would meet like this. And so what this king said to the minister is that if someone comes from the right side, they should read something on this wall that when they go to the left, they feel if they're happy, they go out sad. And if someone comes from the left who's really sad and really depressed in terms of how their life's going right now, they read something on that wall, they go to the right side and they're happy. And the minister thought about it. And then he took the king to the corner and people were walking in. And what was written on the wall was, "This too shall pass." So whether you're extremely elated, joyful, succeeding in every sense of the way, this too has the possibility of passing. And you might see a different season in your life. And if you're really in a difficult period of your life right now, remember, this too shall pass, and you will be on your path to growth and on your path to going where you want to go. And just bringing it back, make sure that the mindset and the mentors stay true to you and you stay true to who you are.
Definitely. And obviously, like you said, such a beautiful story as well. But it's about those mindset and the mentors. Obviously, we've all had our rock bottom moments. And obviously, my mentors as well have played a really big role in pushing me forward, making sure that, because it's obviously not just a personal journey, it's the journey of those around you. And if the people who you surround yourself with believe in your journey and what you're doing, then they'll make sure to keep pushing you forward, keep reminding you why you started and what you want from the journey overall. And so you've worked with a bunch of high performers and you do a bunch of coaching. So just quickly, can you provide some context about what you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. Our business has 3 arms overall, Jia. I love to work with individuals to help them create clarity, help them be courageous in life, and then build conscious impact. We do that through one-on-one coaching, and that's something that we enjoy, and I do it myself as well. Then we have a B2B arm where we do this for organizations, where how can we come into your organization and build a culture that thrives, build a culture that performs really to the highest potential of your individuals, teams, and the whole organization then. And then to me, like the biggest game that I'm working on and still playing is the big content game where we have a podcast, we have content that we release on LinkedIn, because I think content allows you to touch a lot of lives in one go. To me, it's really important that we all understand this human life is a precious gift and we have to make the best of the time that we have on this planet. So that's the work that we do.
Awesome. So what do you think is the biggest difference that you see that like with the people who level up and the people who stay stuck? So what do you think is the difference between those two types of people?
Yeah. I think if you were to simplify it, you can call it the choice but it's ultimately the mindset, right? And what I mean by that, and I love this book by Viktor Frankl, it's called Man's Search for Meaning, where he writes that between the stimuli that comes to you from the environment and how you respond to it, there's a brief pause, there's a brief moment. And in that moment lies your choice, lies your freedom to choose the path that you want to choose. You can have an adversity, you can lose a limb, and you can feel now, I've lost everything, let me just die, and that's it. Or you could lose a limb and you can start to think about how the hell can I become a Paralympic Olympian? And that's the difference between who we end up becoming. So, anyone who's trying to level up, I think the first thing they need to do is to actually think about their mindset and how they approach an adversity as an opportunity versus an adversity as something like is a roadblock and then I cannot move forward.
Yeah, awesome. And it reminds me of this story that I've heard a few times now about a father and two sons. I'm sure everyone's probably heard of a story similar to this or along the same lines. But basically, the father is not a great person. He's always stealing things here and there. Just not a bad person overall, just has really bad values. And so one son sees that his father and says, and starts doing similar things. He's learning from his father. And when he gets into a big problem in the future, the person interviews him and says, "So why are you acting the way you are?" And he says, "My father was like this. Obviously, I'm going to turn out the same way." But then the other son, he took that choice. He made the mindset of, this is my father. I know it's bad. And so I'm going to make the constant choice of making sure I'm not like him. Yeah, basically, the story is about there's the external factors and then the internal factors. Just because you're externally positioned to maybe not be so great, or maybe you're positioned to be awesome, it's still that internal choice, that mindset that you make that makes sure that which pathway you actually do go, no matter how you've grown up, just like the two sons have.
100%. I love that story. And you're absolutely right. It all boils down to the choice because it is our choices. It is how we choose to spend time. It is how we choose to absorb the content. It is how we choose to react when we hear about AI. It is ultimately a choice. And the world's going to do its own thing. What do you choose is a question that you need to ask yourself.
Definitely. You can't change the things that happen to you, but you can change the things that you do in response to that. And so you often talk about your 5 core values: discipline, excellence, growth, freedom, and love, which I personally love. But which of those values help you most in navigating tough decisions or the high pressure moments that you might go through?
I think these values, and I nudge everyone to do the work on the values. It's really important to really define what's your anchor as you build a life that you're choosing for yourself. I think all of these values have at different moments expressed to a different intensity to help me move through the next journey. But one that is encompasses the whole in a way is love. Because I show up to this moment, Jia, as I'm talking to you, with a lot of love. I show up to my clients with a lot of love. To me, love is not beautifully defined yet. It more has a pop culture significance to it, that how two individuals can fall in and out of love. But I think love goes beyond just that one dimensional definition of love that we have spoken about. Love again is multidimensional. I can have a lot of love for my children. I can have a lot of love for my clients, for my wife, for my parents, and for all of humanity. But it all starts with self love. Until unless I'm going to be willing to fill my own cup, I'm not going to be able to fill others' cups as well. So to me, love is like that foundational piece on which the discipline and the excellence and the freedom and the growth live.
Definitely. You actually took the words out of my mouth about filling your own cup. I did this like personal growth workshop slash camp in January, and we did this scenario where we had our own individual cups and we had a bunch of lollies in them, and each lolly signified a piece of our love, metaphorically. So we had to learn that you have to fill up your own cup with a bunch of lollies before you can give someone else your lolly. If you have nothing in your cup, what are you possibly giving someone else? So we did that little situation, and that's definitely what we learned from it, that you have to have self-love before you can love others, and not just romantically, but also, you can love your mentors, you can love, as you said, you gave a bunch of examples which are very well articulated. But looking back now, and what's something about success that you wish more people talked about? What's something that you didn't originally see coming and you had to learn it the hard way? And what's a piece of wisdom that you'd love to give the audience here today?
I think success, the true definition of success is different for each person. And it's almost like to each their own, because at some point in my existence, I also thought that success meant just going up the hierarchical ladder, just adding a couple of more zeros to my bank account. And that's what success meant. But I think success is a very multidimensional attribute again. And it also changes from time to time. For me, in my role as a parent, success could be very different. For me, in my role as a podcaster, success could be different. For me, in my role as a son and as a brother, as a husband, all of these are very different. So I think we all need to do that inner work where we understand what success really looks like for us and then make it like our North Star so that every decision that we make is around achieving that success. And the other thing, Jia, is that there's no true timeline for success. No one said that you have to be successful by 16, by 27, by 33, by 39, by 48. You can find your own journey. And if you're successful with who you are and when you go to bed at night, then that truly defines your success. One quote that I really love from Mahatma Gandhi is he used to say that when I sleep at night, I die, and the next morning, I'm born again. I think to me, that's become one of my mantras for life. That if someone asks me, Utkarsh, how are you doing? Then my true answer is, I'm building life one day at a time. Some days it's a struggle, some days it's amazing, but I'm just finding a lot of joy in going through this process of building a life that I will call success when I die.
Awesome. And it's a common theme that you've just mentioned here again about having your North Star, your why. In my book, I talk about having that why are you actually doing what you're doing and what's keeping you from stopping and what's keeping you from keep going even. And the same thing about success, having that different levels of definitions that each and every person has a different level of success. It's not just about money. I think the first thing we think of with success is how rich are you? How many zeros do you have on your bank account? But it comes back to even what my cousin was saying the other night about how many, like, what keeps you happy? What
Yeah.
makes you give you that self love? And it's such a powerful reminder that success isn't just about having the right answers. It's about having the right questions, values, and tools to navigate whatever shows up because it's never a straight journey.
Just to add to
Go
that,
ahead.
just being this journey, what I sometimes feel is I think we've spoken about a lot. I've heard a lot about this, that it's all about the journey and not the destination. I think it's about the journey, about the destination, about how you take that journey, about the company that you have on that journey. So, again, and I know maybe the thumbnail to this podcast episode could be like the multi-dimensional hypothesis of life or something like that. But I think that too is multi-dimensional, right? You cannot have a journey and reach a destination where you want to call yourself a success without having the right kind of company. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to
Definitely.
the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And now that we've explored your cocktail era, the wins and the breakthroughs, I wanted to break it down further for our listeners because success and strategy is one thing, but it's the ingredients that actually matter. What are you making your cocktail with? So let's talk about what really goes into the high performance, the daily habits, the mindset tools, and the small decisions that have compounded over time. So, if someone is listening who is really struggling with self doubt or feeling stuck in their own way, in their own story, what's the very first step that you tell them to take to start moving forward?
I think the first step there is awareness, Gia. And what I mean by that is that people need to, if they're going through a journey where they feel that they're stuck, they feel they're lost, they feel that something's not right, they need to build a stronger sense of awareness as to what's
Definitely.
not right, as to
Yeah.
what's going on right now. And that will only come by either talking to a right coach or a mentor, or maybe doing a lot of self reflection and introspection and seeing that what is it that's not working for me. So, to me, the first ingredient of this success drink that we're building is awareness.
Definitely. So, what's something small but definitely powerful that they could do this week to get them started?
I'll give them a question. And then the question is, And I do this with my coaches, and I see many stumble upon not finding the answer. So the question is, who are you? And I want them to answer this question by not telling themselves or us as to what profession they are of, what relationships they have, and what education they have. We don't care about their Harvards and the Stanfords and the Melbourne unis and the IITs and the IIMs of the world. But what they need to answer is, what truly gives me joy? What am I truly passionate about? What am I fearful about? Define who you are one level deeper than what sees and what on the surface. And I think that'll be a great exercise if they can find time on the weekend, sit with themselves for about 45 minutes and come up with that answer.
Definitely. And even just action is what happens straight away. So even just after this podcast, taking a journal, writing down who are you, rather than just your qualifications, your money, your hobbies and whatnot, but dialing down, defining really who are you and what keeps you happy. So obviously success isn't just built on the big moments. It's built on the boring stuff, may or may not be boring, but the stuff that we do every day. So what are 2 to 3 daily habits or routines or mindset tools that you use that help you stay grounded, confident, and sharp? So what do your mornings or evenings usually look like?
Yeah. I think the biggest one is meditation for me. I'm right now, if I remember, I use Headspace to meditate every day, and I do 10 minutes a day early in the morning. And I'm on my day 7:55 right now without losing a streak. So to me,
Awesome.
meditation is like the biggest investment that I can make that'll help me make the right choices as I move forward. So that's one. The second is just spending quality time with your loved ones, because to me, this journey cannot be a journey that's lonely. And loved ones could include your friends, your family, your mentors, people who you admire, people who you love and respect. Have some quality moments with them. I think that is super important. And some amount of physical exercise. I think until unless you really move your body, the brain's not going to be well fed. The brain's not going to be rested. Yes, we can speak about sleep as a fourth element, but these four things, I think sleep, meditation, exercise, and spending quality time with your loved ones are most important to me.
Definitely. That's awesome wisdom right there in itself. Definitely. If I was listening, I'd be writing that down straight away. And so obviously we've all had moments that where the plan completely falls apart. You've definitely had some moments. I've definitely had some moments. So can you share the significant time where something didn't go your way or you even failed? And what did you learn from that? And how did you bounce back?
Yeah. That happens all the time, right? You send 1,000 emails, 10 get responded to. You send 100 LinkedIn messages, 5 get responded to. So you could either think of those 95 failures or you could think of those 5 successes. So again, the choice is yours. But I think this is not like a one-way street. On this path of life, you will fall and you will rise up and all in between. And I think you can remember Rocky for his beautiful statements that it's not about how many times life hits you, but how many times you get up and fight against life. So I think it's really important for us to really bounce back in life, because ultimately there's not going to be only successes. Failures are part of that whole journey.
Definitely. And I loved the quick saying that you said about you can either look at the negatives, the empty cup, or half cup full.
Yeah.
And so you obviously work with high performers so you've obviously seen what works, what doesn't. So what's one mistake that you see ambitious people make all the time that even they don't know, like that even they don't realize what's holding them back? And how do you flip that mistake into a strength?
Yeah, I love that question. I think here's how I'll put it. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And I think for all of us, including the high performers that I coach, sometimes they don't go and ask for that next promotion. Sometimes they don't go and pitch that idea. Sometimes they don't go and have that conversation with that VC, because they feel in their mind that, oh, am I even capable of this? Am I even eligible for this? Will I be succeeding on this path? And I think we end up suffering a lot in our own imagination by doing that, a lot of overthinking. And I think the best way to flip this is just do what you have to do, because no one's going to remember you after 30 seconds. Ultimately, when we die, no one except our very close family is going to remember us. And the shots that you don't take will never get into the basket. So just go ahead, take the shots that you have to. Don't doubt yourself and don't suffer in imagination. It's better to do the thing and then suffer in reality than to suffer in imagination.
Definitely. This is some awesome gold. And we've had such an inspiring conversation today. We've covered so much ground from that first initial question of mindset and mentors to talking about your 5 core values and then the 4 habits/routines that you think really help you push you forward. And just hearing about your story as well. There's so many little pieces of advice and just so much momentum, wisdom that we can definitely gain from your journey. So it really aligns with what I've discussed in my book, having that North Star, being understanding your why, and then also the different types of mindset that you could have, mindset of abundance or the scarcity mindset. Definitely check out my book because it's going to have a lot of little pieces of wisdom, just like today's conversation. And I'm sure all the listeners are burning to know your answer to this very special question that I ask all my guests. But what's your favorite drink and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. Now, are we talking about alcoholic or non-alcoholic? Let me clarify.
Whatever you want. I've had,
Whatever.
yeah, all good.
You've had everything. Right. I'll answer in 2 parts. I think non-alcoholic, I love my coffee. And people told me before I came to Melbourne that Melbourne has the best coffee. I did not agree with that till I had the coffee in Melbourne. And I think it's the best coffee in the world. And then in terms of alcoholic, I love my Long Island iced teas.
Awesome. And so, why would you say those are the answers?
Maybe because the Long Island iced tea has 5 ingredients. And to succeed, you also need those 5 ingredients.
Oh, awesome. So, thank you for sharing your wisdom today with us. And so, if the viewers want to stay connected with your work, where should they find you?
They should find me on LinkedIn, reach out to me. I specifically look at every message that comes my way. And we have a podcast too. And Jia was on that episode. So check out Jia's episode on our podcast. She also shared a lot of gold on that one. But yeah, anywhere on LinkedIn would be amazing.
Awesome. I highly recommend checking out his incredible resources. I too sent you a LinkedIn message a few months ago, and that's where our journey started together. And for all the listeners, I'd love to hear what resonated with you from today's episode. So drop me a DM on Instagram at ClassCounterWealthWizard or leave a comment on the post related to this episode. So let's continue the conversation and support each other on every one of our journeys of growth and transformation. And thank you for listening. And remember, the next big step towards your success starts right now. This is Gia signing off with a mocktail in hand and a mission in heart. See you next time.